My name is Kurtis Carsh, and I am a 2021 Arnold Beckman Postdoctoral Fellow, where I've had the exciting opportunity to conduct my postdoctoral research funded by the Arnold Beckman Foundation at the University of California, Berkeley, in the research group Professor Jeffrey R. Long. When I was finishing up my doctoral research at Harvard University in the research program of Professor Ted Bentley, I was looking at making late transition metal species for CH bond functionalization catalysis. I wanted to take my rigorous training in synthesis, spectroscopy, and catalysis and apply it to look at gas separations that are relevant toward minimizing carbon emissions in our current world. And the motivation here for why gas separations are important is that about half of the total industrial energy goes into chemical separations, or the bulk of chemical separations are currently carried out using distillation. And because distillation is an energy inefficient process, there is tremendous opportunities to be replacing distillation with alternative, more energy benign processes such as adsorption or membrane-based separation. And ultimately, if we could develop new adsorbents and membranes, this could greatly reduce the energy consumption that membranes are associated that distillation is associated with. Well, there's a specific class of materials that are quite magnificent, known as metal organic frameworks, where a small amount of these materials can have tremendous surface areas, where the surface areas can provide binding sites for a gas of interest. And in particular, I'll be talking about one metal organic framework that was very instrumental in my postdoctoral research, where a tablespoon of that moth has 6 times the surface area of this football field at the University of Texas at Austin. Well, metal organic frameworks are a growing class of materials. They were discovered a little over 2 decades ago, and they were initially very fundamental studies that could showcase the ability to dial in porosity in molecular-based building blocks to make reticulated extended structures. And there's now a good number of commercial applications for these materials in a variety of spaces, showcasing that metal organic frameworks can bridge the gaps between fundamental studies to be able to be applied for real world problems. Well, I've been fortunate to work on several different topics in my postdoctoral research, one of which is this notion of high temperature separations. So, to be able to process crude reagents into commodity chemicals, often we need high temperature reactions, where to be able to access these temperatures for the reactions, we combust fossil fuels, which is going to emit carbon dioxide. Simultaneously, many of these reactions that are of interest to society include processes that make carbon dioxide as an intrinsic byproduct, such as cement manufacturing and iron and steel making, in which these are growing industries that are high carbon emitting. So we need to be thinking about processes that we can use to retrofit existing industrial plants to capture the carbon that is emitted. And this idea of high temperature carbon dioxide emission is quite general for a wide variety of different processes. Well, currently, our carbon capture infrastructure is geared toward ambient temperature, where we have to design these large cooling towers such that we can take the effluent gas stream from high temperature down to low temperature and undergo capture with technology such as aqueous amines. But as shown here in this figure, which is the Petronova plant near Houston, Texas, these cooling towers are large and they often emit water vapor that is used from cooling the process. And unfortunately, one of the defining features of the 21st century is water scarcity. In other words, if we want to be doing carbon capture at scale, we need to start thinking about approaches of how we can capture carbon dioxide that's emitted at high temperature without the need to cool using water vapor. I've been fortunate in my postdoctoral research to pioneer a new subset of the long group research, as well as a new subset of the separations field with a fellow graduate student, Rachel Rohde, who's now a 5th year, where we've developed these metal hydride building blocks as part of a large metal organic framework. These metal hydrides are quite unique. They can undergo carbon dioxide capture from a wide variety of different sources. We're at temperatures at 300 degrees Celsius, relevant for steel and cement manufacturing. We can undergo reversible capture and release of carbon dioxide simply by toggling the amount of carbon dioxide that the sample is exposed to. And we see through a wide range of diffraction and spectroscopic studies that we have a unique mechanism that is an interconversion between a metal hydride and a metal formate, where we can utilize this carbon dioxide capture mechanism for a highly selective gas capture process. We're quite excited by this. It recently came out in Science. We've had a patent that have now been issued to a large energy company. Well, what's also been exciting in this space is the opportunity to interact with other Beckman Fellows at conferences and learn from the wise wisdom and teachings of Arnold O. Beckman himself. He has many rules for success that I integrate into my workflow that I look at on a weekly basis. And my favorite rule of his is his fifth rule, that you should not be afraid of making mistakes. And if you're not making mistakes, you're probably not you're probably not at the cutting edge of research. So I keep that in mind when I am in the lab conducting my research, that I'm going to be making mistakes. I'm going to be exploring the unknown, and that's okay. That is how I can develop as a scientist. That is how I can develop as a thought leader. That is how I can use the experience of overcoming adversity through mistakes to teach myself something new, to teach my students something new, and then build up new wisdom to overcome these challenges. Thank you very much and have a fantastic day.